I want to welcome everybody to the Experience Economy podcast. This is where we talk to brand and marketing experts about massive transitions in the marketplace, moving from a product and service economy to one I like to call the experience economy. This is where everything from technology, machine learning, IoT connected devices, hyper personalization. These are all elements that are changing the way that we create value for our customers, right? We talk through these provocative challenges with our guests, find out from them what they think companies need to be doing to answer these challenges, and really what they're personally doing either in their companies, in their industry, to engage in becoming an experience provider rather than, a product or service company. We've seen those for a long time. Today, I'm really excited. We get to introduce McKee, Executive Director of Marketing at Annex Brands. I think, if I'm not mistaken, at close to 900 locations. I know she looks like she's 25, but don't let her anti-aging cream fool you. She is a franchise marketing expert, right? Much like her predecessor, Steve Goebel, who recently retired. She came from Jack in the Box. She came from a multi-brand franchisee with experience in with a large franchisee developer of sports clips, Luminous Med Spa. She was also with a franchise startup, an emerging brand, Flippin' Pizza. No, I don't think you were actually flipping pizza, but that was the brand name. 20 locations and growing. You've been responsible, from what I can see, if I remember right, for marketing and branding for a sports franchise, an amusement park. I mean, from my perspective, that's a pretty storied career for someone who looks 25 and doesn't have a gray hair on her head, when Steve and I have nothing but no hair on our head, right? I want to welcome you, Michelle, to the Experience Economy podcast. Did I get anything wrong?
Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me. Well, we don't have quite 900 locations. I can't tell you the exact number, but closer to between 600, 700. And for actually Steve, ironically, he did come from Jack in the Box. So he worked in the finance department back in the day. So that was actually a connection that we had. But yeah, you are right. I've got lots of tentacles in tons of different areas: non-franchise, franchise, B2B, B2C, entertainment like sports and amusement park, and now providing a service to the general consumer and also commercial industry. So a whole lot.
That is a whole lot. I've obviously worked with Annex Brands for quite a while. I actually thought there were closer to 900 between commercial and retail. I know that, there's a unique blend of commercial and retail pack and ship franchise locations with Annex Brands. Pretty sure it's about 7 brands in total at this point, acquiring more as the opportunities come up. So this is really a 2-part question for our audience. One, I really want to understand Annex Brands, right? Tell us about Annex Brands, but just as importantly, for a secondary part of this question, which is, what problems are you solving? As a franchisor, you're creating an environment for entrepreneurs or individuals that want to own their own business. You give them a way to operate a business with a proven successful model, right? And then you're also, your franchisees are solving problems for their consumers as well. So if you can kind of tell us more about Annex Brands, tell us more about being a franchisor, what that means, and then, what their franchisees are expected to do.
Yeah. So Annex Brands, we are packing, shipping. We do freight and, shipping large loads for on the commercial side of things. So things that you may not find in a full-on freight and commercial logistics industry. We are that great in between there. So we can do the big, and we also do the stuff where, a lot of those larger commercial freight companies are like, I'm not going to pick that up. I'm not going to ship that thing. We will ship that thing. So on the commercial side, that, and then for retail, there's a lot of competitors in our industry, but we are fairly unique in that we offer various carriers, shipping carriers. So, for example, UPS, USPS, FedEx, and DHL. So customers, when they come in, they have the choice and they get to pick. They're not stuck with one in particular. So we, Ultimately, what we do is we provide solutions for customers. They come in, they have a challenge, they need to accomplish something, and we find a way to help them make it happen. So that's what we do. And as a franchisor, it's funny because depending on the industry you're in and the culture of the company, it's dramatically different. It is so, I can't tell you how different it is from the various franchise brands that I've worked with. But what is consistent and the same is that we are humans serving humans, period. And when you get out of the weeds and you really step back and you think of who's my customers actually, a lot of people, my customers are my stakeholders. My personal customer is my peers that I work with every single day. The other departments that I serve, those are my customers. The actual franchisees and the franchise community is one of our main core customers, making sure that they have what they need to be successful, because ultimately that's why they buy into a franchise model, is because they want that support and that backbone and that proven success, and take that so that they could either pass it on or they could build their portfolio of businesses and brands that they manage. And then in the end, ultimately, we're here to serve the consumer, the end consumer, whether that's a business owner, a commercial user, or a retail customer that's coming in for one item that needs help with one particular thing. But we solve problems. That's what we do for all of our customers, internal and external.
You kind of beat me to the punch, because the next part of this really was about, from this point forward, talking about stakeholder value, right? Because when we refer to customers, it's really about stakeholders, because especially in a really complex business like Annex Brands or a franchise company, it doesn't really matter if it's Annex Brands, but in a really complex business model, you have a lot of different stakeholders. You mentioned your staff. You also have your executive committee there at the corporate office, right? You have franchisees that you and your staff have to actually support. And let's not forget, without consumers actually buying, retail consumers buying from your franchisees, none of that actually exists. So from my perspective, I really want to talk about stakeholder value, how we create that stakeholder value, because there's various elements of customer experience, customer journey. And that really leads me into the next piece, which is, before I share my vision of this, which I'll get towards the end a little bit, I want to understand from you, when I say customer experience or customer journey, what do those things mean to you? Tell us what that elicits.
Yeah, I like this question because it seems like it would be an easy answer. It's the products and services we offer, and it's but that's like a small piece of it. It's how the customer feels, how they feel before they enter the door. Do they know about you? Are they stumbling upon you? Where did they learn about you? What did you communicate with them before they even touched your business? And is what you communicated to them, or what they've heard about you from other customers, positive, negative, from reading online reviews, from clicking on a digital ad, is that consistent with their experience? And will it meet their expectations? And expectations are a very funny thing. I think as marketers, we want to make sure, and I've made this mistake. Actually, I've made the mistake quite a bit of wanting the message to be so powerful and so promising and so attractive that we bring them in and engage them and then pass it off to our operations partners and the team members who actually execute it and say, well, we've done our part by marketing what we say we will do, and we've passed it on to operations teams or field teams, and they know what we've said. They're going to do it. No, they're not. Not always, sometimes, but sometimes not. And then what happens when you don't deliver on that? And that is where everything falls apart.
Can you give an example? That's actually a really interesting take. Can you give an example of, you said you've screwed up a few times, and from my perspective, screwing up and failure is all a part of success, because you can't have success without all of the ups and downs of what you've learned. What is a prime example of what you just talked about?
Yeah. And I celebrate those failures, because without that, I wouldn't have learned to not do that, or to say, yeah, but can we really deliver on this? And that's what marketing is. Marketing is the voice. Marketing is the voice of operations. Here's what we will do, and we will deliver on this. So you have to actually do more listening than you do talking. And honestly, I'm struggling to search for a story of, oh my gosh, this one time, here's what I did, and oh, what a mistake. I'm really
So let's not go with one time at band camp then.
One time at band camp, right? No, so not that, but it would be something like, let's say you did half off your, I'll say it for shipping, what we're in right now, right? Half off your first shipment when you make a purchase of blank or more. First time customers only. Pass it on to operations, pass it on to our partners that program everything in, send out the training materials, and you're thinking, check, check, check. I checked all my boxes. But unless that message is received on the operations side, and staff is trained to say, when this person comes in and shows this, you first verify that this is their first time. And then you make sure that they spend this amount, and make sure when you greet them, you are warm and welcoming. Hey, thank you, because it's their first impression. Hey, we shared all this stuff out. Everybody, of course, they're going to do it. But what you don't realize, and this is, I think, a huge pitfall, is as a marketer, if you have not worked in a customer service position, I don't know how you can excel at what you do. The best experience I've had is working at a restaurant. Hands down, 100%, because you are managing a staff and a team. You are working on that POS system. You are then needing to do the reports at the end of the day. The reports have to do with the inventory. You see how what you do impacts everything else, and you hear and you deal with that customer. So you know what it's like when you are overwhelmed, and then somebody sends a memo and you're like, that's great. You want me to stop and read this memo and then pull all of my staff in to have a training for this. And when am I going to have this staff meeting? My staff has school schedules. My staff, and all these hurdles and barriers are like, you know what? I'll just post it here by the clock-in area and people will read it. The reality of a vision and actually executing it is usually like there's a huge gap. So I've learned now to really ask the question, is this feasible? Can we execute on this? Can we deliver on this? How can we set a realistic expectation? And then when that customer comes in, I think that the worst thing is when a customer comes in to show a promotion that they found and they're educating the person behind the counter of what the promotion is.
And I'm sure in your business model that happens a lot more frequently than one would ever expect.
Oh my gosh, so often. And when I'm speaking right now, it's not about Annex brands.
Right.
Not about Jack in the Box. It's not about all these other places. Every location, every brand, it's a consistent struggle across the board unless you make it completely foolproof. Best way through technology. If you have a scanner, you can scan it and the system will do the work for you. But if you don't have a system that does the work for you and you're counting on humans to care as much about something as you care about it, when they have so many other things to care about and be responsible for, that's not realistic. So you really got to be realistic, So that customer experience, going back to your original question, what is the customer experience? And really, what is marketing? It's everything. It's every touch point. It's how the posters are in the front window, the graphics. Are they up with Scotch tape and crooked into the side? Is the imagery faded by the sun? That says that this location doesn't pay attention to detail. They don't care about fill in the blank, right? When you're not paying attention to those small things, it registers to the customer as, this could impact me some way, and how, all these little touch points, not just the product or service.
Yeah, we'll come back to technology in a couple minutes because I think that's actually really important as we talk about customer experience and, customer journey and meeting expectations. But before we go there, I think it makes a lot of sense to talk about what expectations your customers have, or better yet, stakeholders. What expectations do your stakeholders of Annex Brands have, and why? And how are you meeting those?
Yeah. The expectations, like in a relationship, like in a marriage, like in a friendship, like with everything, have to do with how you communicate with that person from the beginning and what agreements you make, right? So you're holding up, you're saying, hey, I'm going to do this for you. And they go, okay, sounds good. I'm going to do this for you, but here's what I need you to do for me. Okay, that sounds good. I'll do this part if you do this part. Great. We got a deal. Shake hands, sign on the dotted line, done. That's where the expectation gets set. Now, what you do with that expectation past that, do you hold people accountable to it?
Right.
Or do you say, well, it's there, but we don't really follow this thing. If you do that, then it says, well, if they don't follow this thing here, then they don't follow this thing here. Then I've got room to negotiate over here. I've got room to push here. I've got room to push here. So being consistent and setting the right expectations is super important. And also knowing, having reasonable expectations,
right?
Reasonable standards. Is it achievable? Like when you're managing a team and you have goals, you can set all these goals, but is it attainable? And if you can't even answer if it's attainable, then there's no way they're going to achieve that. So if you have a system that is it's not reasonable to achieve success, then you are not setting your people up for success. And it's going to be impossible for them to meet the expectation, right? And then also you have to deliver on how you provide them with the tools and systems to be able to meet that expectation. So there are so many touch points with this that's really important, just as running a business,
right?
And having franchisees in particular, because they're buying into a business model because they want the support, they want the tools, and they want everything in place.
They want you to run their business for them.
They do, but they also want to be their own boss.
Right.
Right. And that's a funny line because you're buying into a business and a brand because you want to own your own business. And in theory, don't want necessarily to have a boss to report to. You are your own boss. You set your own, but you still have to follow some things. And sometimes that can be a challenge, I believe. And the reason it can be a challenge, it's for various reasons. Like people come from all sorts of different backgrounds, all over the globe, different types of home environments that they grew up in, different relationships and friendships, different education, different experiences unfortunately, based on skin color and based on gender, and all of these life experiences that we have that shape who we are, make us kind of, that's our operating system.
It makes us all unique.
System. What was that?
It makes us all unique.
It makes us unique. And that is a beautiful thing. So the challenge as a franchisor is that you have these stakeholders and partners that have different internal operating systems. And you're wanting to make sure that their operating system, their heart, their core, their mind, their why they do what they do, their vision, matches your operating system. And that operating system is your operations manual. That operating system is also your company culture and the people that you hire to support. So there's so much compatibility.
Well, and the franchisees that you also accept into the system as well.
Right, absolutely. And, every vetting process is different for every franchise brand. And sometimes you make accommodations that typically you wouldn't make, but it's for certain reasons. And I think that's kind of like everything in life. I don't believe in hard lines.
Right.
Everything's pretty gray, and that's okay.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? Because you have various corporate goals of growing a franchise network. I mean, Annex Brands has a really interesting, and I'm not going to call it a unique, but a really interesting challenge, because unlike someone like a Massage Envy or a Lux Massage or something like that, right, where they're fairly new franchise systems comparatively. You've got McDonald's that's 60, 70 years old, something like that. You have Annex Brands that's almost 40 years old, if I remember correctly. So having franchisees that have been around for 30, 40 years, 20, 30 years, whatever it is, there's been a huge technological change. Forget about customer experience, just a technological change that has changed the way they've done business, forced them to change against, in some cases, against their will. And so the unique, or not the unique, but the interesting thing for Annex Brands or organization your age, if you will, is that breeding breathing new life into the organization with resales, that's got to be a really interesting way to grow the business, not necessarily unit wise, but be able to grow the business from a volume sales production wise, because as you breathe new blood into this, you have someone that's energized, is understanding the technological changes and the challenges associated with running a business today. Does that play into any of this?
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that because, actually most companies that I've worked with, the pace of technology is, even if you are a tech company, it's hard to keep up with.
Right.
Period. And if you are all company owned, you have a little more control because you can say, we are going to push this out. We are going to operate or upgrade these systems. We are going to, and you can make that decision, right? For the best of the company, or for, you can't, but when you are a franchisor and technology is moving fast, you have a lot more hurdles to jump through. And that is, which version of the franchise agreement did they sign? And when they signed it, did it say that this thing was required? Are we grandfathering this thing in?
Right.
What are the fees that we said, and how do we change these fees? Do we change these fees? If we change these fees, then what happens here? Then, there's a lot of massaging that has to happen. And
the varying franchise agreements over the years too. So many franchisees are on different agreements.
Right. So as you do have change of ownership, you have these newer versions of contracts that are being signed that are in different phases. So if you roll out a new brand, it's not going to be flipping a switch. It's not going to be a 1 year, 2 year, sometimes 3 year plan.
Right.
It takes time. But there's also benefits to having a franchise system as well. So there's beauty in all of it. But definitely the fast pace of technology is one of the biggest hurdles if you don't have the right structures in place. So what I've learned over time, because first off, nobody likes their POS system. I have never, ever known franchise, not franchise, doesn't matter. Like, oh my gosh, this is the best POS system. You know what it lets me do? No, everybody hates it.
Well, no, they say that for the first, the honeymoon period, which is about the first 5 minutes you log into it. And then after that, you start finding everything that's wrong with it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then you upgrade, and then you got other problems. You got to, nothing's ever perfect, and that's okay. So there we go back to expectations again, right? So have the right expectations.
Speaking on expectations, actually, I'd be remiss not to ask about customer expectations and how they've changed with the crazy 12 months that we've had over the last 12 months that we've had with COVID, pandemic, with various states and counties and cities that have various measures of lockdowns and things of that nature. How people working from home at clips that have never been seen before, right? What or how have customer expectations changed that you've seen over the course of the last 12 months, and how well have your franchisees been prepared to deal with those?
Yeah. What's I think is really interesting about this is I shifted from one industry, marketing one industry, and that was the amusement park industry, to the industry with Annex Brands, which is an essential business, totally different, right? And what I noticed in the very, very beginning, when all of this was occurring and we started to have some restrictions and this, that a lot of the rules and that once served us no longer served us. And that would be things like, if you update the information here, you have to have it here, 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 here. It has to be a professional sign. It's got to be printed with full accuracy. You've got to guarantee that. And once things move so quick that I believe business shifted because they had to adapt so quickly, and customer expectations also shifted. I've seen more humanity in people,
Okay.
more adaptability, and more agility and understanding, I believe. Things that people might be upset about, like, it says this, but you're not doing this. They're like, you know what? I get it. Don't worry about it. You're doing the best you can do. Because everybody really is doing the best that they can do. And they're cutting.
Things are changing so frequently.
Outside
of our control.
Yeah. So I noticed that definitely changed. And that I noticed that right in the beginning, and even through now, there is more flexibility and forgiveness when something's not perfect, or when you go to your favorite restaurant and they're like, sorry, we're serving a limited menu. You're like, that's cool. No problem. What do you have today? Oh, it's cool. We can human together. All right, cool. Because people are doing it with a heart to serve, and they're sacrificing, and I think that that's really great. And in our industry with Annex Brands, we've seen a positive lift, whereas most experience shutdown, but that's because we are an essential business. And a lot of the people that were going into their offices and using office supplies from their office and their office equipment and their office printer, they don't have that access at home, right? Yeah. So now we are able to be a helpmate and serve communities. And I think that I believe that's the best part. Is, everybody says, I want to make a difference in this world when I grow up, right? We all want to make a difference. And sometimes it comes from an ego standpoint.
Yeah.
But if you can understand that everybody truly does serve a purpose and a function, and nobody's is more important than the next, there's a lot more value and power in that humanity, So being able to say, we may not have our full staff today and we may be on limited hours, but we're here to serve you. How can I help?
Right.
And I think that that's a beautiful thing. And we've been able to do that and keep our doors open and help other businesses keep their doors open and run their business by being there to support them. And that's awesome.
That is actually a really interesting aspect to this entire, counterintuitive, right? I'm sure, I know that pretty sure there was probably an initial drop before everyone started figuring out what was what, but being able to grow your business in this environment and help people at the same time and be able to provide security-ish to staff members of franchisees that are probably just as, or sometimes more, wondering what's going on, right? So that's got to be a really, for you, for your staff, for the franchisees, that's got to be a great motivator for you guys, because this is a real opportunity for you not only to keep your doors open, keep food on the table for your staff, but be able to grow business at the same time while helping people transition their lives from a go into the office 5 days a week to working from home probably 6 days a week now, right? Yeah. All of that kind of leads me to the next thing, which has more to do with getting buy-in, right? Franchising as an industry, if you can call it an industry, I do. It's really unique. It poses unique challenges that a Best Buy simply doesn't have. Best Buy owns all their corporate locations, right? They demand something and it just gets rolled out. Now, the effectiveness is going to be measured. Each store is going to be different. But franchising has unique challenges from a stakeholder buy-in perspective. You can't just demand something. You have staff that you have to get buy-in from, because if they're not going to push it to the franchisees, what good is it? You have executive leadership teams that you've got to get buy-in before you to get buy-in from staff. You have, franchisees. But before you can go to the franchisees, you've got to have buy-in from the advisory council, get their feedback. ultimately the franchisee staff, right? So, I mean, all these various levels of stakeholders that make your job as a marketing executive really difficult. Having a vision is one thing. Executing that vision is something totally different. Can you tell me, share with us the vision for meeting expectations of your ideal clients? Now, this I'm obviously talking about the retail for all intents and purposes. We could also talk about the franchisee experience, franchisor. What is the difference in meeting your vision, creating an ideal experience, going from idea and getting from an idea to fruition? What does that look like, and how do the unique challenges of franchising impact that, I guess, is the best way for me to put it.
Yeah. The vision is actually, it starts with that, and the creation and development of that vision. Because when you say things like your vision, my vision, our vision.
Yeah.
If it's my vision, good luck. If it's our vision, but it's not really our vision, it's what I'm observing as what I believe our vision to be, good luck. The vision has to be, it's again, listening. What do we actually do? What is our function? What is our company mission and vision? Sure, we could check that box there, right? But what is the true vision, and who is a part of developing that vision will either create success or not. I've been through so many different rebranding initiatives across the past couple decades. It's not even funny, right? And these are our company values. Here's our new values, ready, go. And very rarely is it fully executed on, a lot of times because it's a handful of leadership that goes in a room and says, this is what we want it to be. These are our aspirational operating values. This is our aspirational vision. And it's not from the ground up, and it has to start with the people, right? So that vision, first off, has to be created by the participants who are going to bring that vision to life. And there has to be transparency through that. Because if you don't have transparency through that strategic process, and at the end, you're just like, okay, here's our vision. Here's what we're going to do. Push out. You're not going to have a lot of buy-in or adoption at all. So the more you can bring people along that journey and have transparency and making sure that whatever you are doing serves a function and is meeting a need. There has to be a need. People need to feel like my needs are being met. And because my needs are being met, okay, here's now what I can do. Here's now my part in how I'm going to bring this to life, because I feel like this vision is going to help me be successful and meet my needs and add value to my life, So
yeah.
And not every franchise is the same, right? So some have a very clear vision and a very strong culture, company culture. Chick-fil-A,
yeah,
nailed, hands down, gold standard. It's going to be the same at every single location. And the people have the same heart to serve, but their vetting process is so strict, it's insane. And I say that because it's only a $10,000 buy-in to be able to become a franchisee. Granted, there's a lot more cost obviously associated, but that means that
is only $10,000.
Yeah, their pool is a lot broader. So they're finding, we want all sorts of people, and we want to find the right people with the right heart that are aligned with our values and our vision. If you're pulling from outside, or if you're formulating, making sure that vision is aligned, and you have the systems and tools to create consistency. If you don't have clear vision, you're not bringing in people who are aligned with that vision, or the people who are in your system aren't aligned with that, and you don't have the systems, tools, and procedures to help people succeed and hold them accountable,
right?
The vision's not going anywhere. Nothing's going to happen,
So as we talk about that, we've got a couple more minutes left. And what I want to do is wrap kind of three questions into one.
Okay.
I think they can all be wrapped together. We've talked about vision, executing that vision. We've talked about the customer experience. One, how do you know when people really just get your vision? What does that look like? And how do you measure success of delivering on that experience? I'll make the third piece separate, but if you can touch on that for just a few seconds.
Yeah. It helps when the people who you're partnering with to execute that vision are a part of the process or brought along the journey. So you don't just smack them with, hey, here's our vision, ready, set, go. They understand the reasoning, why, where the information was gathered from. They trust it. You have to have that trust and that respect for that vision in order for them to be an active participant, with bringing it to life. But where I see that switch happen is, and again, you don't need a lot of time, FaceTime, not like FaceTime the phone, but you don't always need a lot of time, but you do need to connect with their needs. So if you're like, here's what we saw, here's your need, you've expressed this need, so here's what we're going to do. Here, and here's our vision. If that can happen in a short period of time, or it can take more time. So it's time continuum, right? But where you see it click is when they're engaged in the process and they start to say, oh, what if we, that lean in, if we were face to face, which, it'll happen someday, you might see eyes dilate.
Yeah.
You would see them going back like this to like, okay, the energy, the breath, you see it in body language, you hear it in their tone. But a lot of times when you do have that engagement is when they're like this vision, oh, I have an idea. What if we, and they start contributing ideas.
Right.
Is when you say, okay, here's our vision, but here's some challenges that we need to overcome. I have that same challenge. Okay, here's what I do. What do you do? And they're hungry.
They're hungry for solutions.
They're hungry for solutions, and not just hungry like, yeah, we need to fix it. So, what are you going to do?
Tell me what to do.
Part of it. They're alongside you. Right. And they're wanting to be a part of the process to find a way to make it work, find a way to bring that vision to life because they believe in it,
So when I think of customer experience, customer journey, I think of it as every real or perceived interaction that a consumer has with a brand or should have with the brand from the consumer's perspective, right?
Yes.
I think most companies look at customer experience about how they want to deliver rather than looking at it from, all right, someone went ahead and they gave us a survey response and now we have it. We sent this great email saying, hey, thank you for your survey response. But what are we doing with it, right? The customer might expect, hey, my pizza was delivered 45 minutes late. And yeah, your delivery driver, they apologized. But where was the manager the next day? 45 minutes after I'm supposed to get it. That's just unacceptable. That's reason for me to go somewhere else. Where that's a perceived interaction from the customer that from a company's perspective, make it almost impossible. We'll get back to technology piece really quickly, but make it almost impossible to deliver on that actual customer experience. So two things. When I say real or perceived, when it relates to customer journey, what does that elicit from you? And then most importantly, what role do you think technology has to play in delivering this move and transition from a product and service company environment to a true experience economy?
Okay, so for the real perceived thing, I think of it like you can't see it, but I have this sign that says imagine and one that says explore. These two signs. They're a little cheesy, but I'm okay with it. Here's why. That word imagine, it helps you get inside that customer journey. Like imagine what it's like If you start something by saying, imagine what it's like, and then fill it in with to be a franchisee who, or to be a customer who, to be you have to feel it, get in those shoes,
believe it,
because their perception is their reality. And that reality shapes their behavior and whether they come again, whether they post a review, so I think of it in terms of, okay, imagine you are a mother working full time. Your kids are now at home. So you're also a homeschool teacher, and you want to make sure that they are safe. And you also have an elderly parent who is fragile, very healthy, or their health is, shaky, and you really cannot risk being exposed to anything. You leaving this house is a whole thing. You got to get the kids, you got to get the stuff together, you got to, and any exposure, you feel like you carry the weight of your shoulders to keep your family safe. And I imagine that person, how they feel leaving their house, everything that went into them needing to prepare for that, to then drive to your location. Let's say they had a discount, a deal, or a promotion, right? They've got some digital coupon, and they're like, my husband's, let's say, got laid off.
Yeah.
So now it's the only income.
Yeah.
And you are counting on this coupon to work because you got to get stuff done for your business or for your personal. Now you come in the door, you're already super stressed out, right? That person's expectation and their emotional state, how they're filtering everything. If that ad says fast service, affordable rates, half off your first fill in the blank.
Right.
Now we've got 3 people standing outside in a line spaced 6 feet apart. 2 customers in the store because you have a max capacity issue. So they're already super stressed out. Now waiting in line outside with people walking by on the curb, stressed out. And yes, I'm bringing you through this whole journey. I absolutely am. So they finally get to this counter. They're like, this person got real close to me. They could, how they feel right now. And then they're like, hey, okay, so I need to get this. I have this coupon. It wasn't fast. You lied. Right? The brand lied. B, affordable. Well, the franchisee sets their own price. A lot of franchisees set their own price. Certain things might be good rates, competitive. We strive to be competitively priced, but let's say it's a little on the higher side. And then you're like, hey, I have this coupon. Oh, sorry, ma'am. That's not accepted here. That's actually only accepted at the one that's 3 blocks down the way because we're a franchise brand. And that other location, that's the one where you need to go. So sorry. Oh boy. And that's a human issue. That is a very real issue. That happens often. It's a reality across tons of businesses. And the technology piece of it is having the systems to train or inform, or if you are not preparing in advance to get buy-in from your franchisees to say, hey, this is a promotion that we are running. We need your confirmation that you are going to participate in this, and we will push out this technology to your system so that we can scan this thing so your system has the proper coding, your staff has confirmed they've been trained, you have confirmed you have, because technology enables all of this. Then when you go in, they go, oh, here you go. Oh, we are, well, hopefully at that point, because you've done all this groundwork, participating.
Yep.
The coupon works. They have a great experience. They're much happier now. Maybe they had to wait a little bit, but they're gone, right? But if you don't have those systems and tools ahead of time with rolling this thing out and making sure that it actually works, technology is the make or break, is a big make or break in that situation that enables or disables things. And then the last part of it, which is the part then as a marketer, we look at, hey, did this thing work?
Yeah.
Was it trackable? I don't know, because it wasn't scanned, because it wasn't put in this POS system, because it wasn't, so many reasons that it wasn't. Where if you have technology, the ability to track, to be able to know who it went to, if they opened, if they've engaged with your brand before, how many times they've engaged, what is their lifestyle like, what is their online behavior like, and how quickly everything changes with technology, with, and I will respect all day, respect of privacy and following rules and guidelines. They're there for a reason. As it shifts, we have to shift. But if we're following what is available to us, then we can learn a lot about their needs, what their life is like, so that when we have marketing messaging, it's crafted based on, we happen to know that you are a family, you are a household, you do have children in the home, you are a working parent, you are this, that. So our tone of our message will connect. And when they go in, it will work. And then after they go in and redeem this thing, we can say, hey, thanks for coming in. We know it was a big challenge getting out of the home. Here's this for your next visit. And you can do that through technology.
Right.
Otherwise, especially on the franchisor side, unless you have that technology to be able to track it, program it, rely on that data, it's a little bit blind. You're hoping that it works. Your only measure of success is, did sales go up? Did they go down? What impacted that? And it's a lot of guessing.
Right. Yeah, consistency of operation also is very difficult in a franchise scenario as well. I mean,
yeah,
every franchisee can choose or not choose to implement certain pieces of the puzzle, right? Staff can choose or not choose when the owner's not there to do certain things or not do certain things. Without technology, I think it's almost impossible. Yeah. Michelle, this has been a lot of fun. Do you have any last thoughts, any last minute, maybe questions for me you'd like to pose to the Experience Economy podcast here? Is there anything that we left out?
I think the ethical marketing piece is something that isn't often talked about, and it's like an unspoken oath that you are marketing something that you can deliver on, and making sure you're doing the right thing with that, which isn't often taught in school. They say, hey, make sure the legal says this, as long as it's in the legal, but right. Not necessarily, if it's in the legal and you're making it hard for people to understand, you're doing them a disservice and the staff a disservice, because then that staff has to then explain why and point to that and do the lifting and the heavy burden of solving that customer complaint. And that's not fair, you know?
Yeah.
And if you're not making it clear that this is not valid at all locations, only at this location with an address, if you're not doing the right thing ethically with marketing, that's a responsibility that it's pretty important, because you are the voice of that brand.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. Agree with that enough. I don't disagree with that at all. I think the ethics piece has been pushed to the envelope in so many different ways at this point, focusing on the customer experience, focusing on the experience from the customer's perspective, knowing that if we do that, the rest is going to follow. If we simply just focus on what the business needs to drive revenue, yeah, we're probably going to drive revenue. But if we focus on the experience that we're delivering at the same time, while we're driving revenue, I mean, I don't see a better way for us to transition from a product and service business to an economy focused solely on nothing but that experience. I can't thank you enough, Michelle, for joining us today, imparting your wisdom, sharing with us everything that you have learned over the last, I'm going to call it 5 years. I'm joking.
It's okay. Times 4. Only it.
And that wraps up the Experience Economy podcast today. So thank you very much for joining us. And Michelle, for, again, taking your time out of your busy day to impart some wisdom on everybody else.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.